For centuries, knowledge has been hidden in plain sight across the sands of time. Whispers of lost civilizations, cryptic symbols, and forbidden histories have been erased or concealed. What if the truth was never lost, but hidden? Welcome to Eye of Ancient Mysteries, where the past speaks and the future listens. Sit back, open your mind, and prepare to uncover the untold secrets of our world. Let the journey begin now. UFOs in the history of art, spaceship, or cloud. Ufologists believe that art contains numerous depictions of UFOs. Art historians, on the other hand, disagree. UFOs, now more often referred to as UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, are frequently linked to conspiracy theories. Enthusiastic ufologists have identified what they interpret as UFO imagery in various works of art. However, art historians usually offer alternative explanations for such iconography. In the following article, we will look at different artworks and examine the contrasting viewpoints of ufologists and art historians. Read on to learn more about UFO sightings throughout art history. A golden UFO? In Jacques Legrand's illustration of Fortuna, we can see a shining golden orb in the sky. A group of men in the upper right corner gaze at this golden sphere in awe. In the foreground below, 5 men are depicted, 2 walking toward the right side of the page, and 3 approaching a woman positioned directly beneath the golden sphere, with a wheel behind her. This golden orb is the central iconographic element contested between ufologists and art historians. For ufologists, this golden sphere represents a UFO. They believe the rays surrounding the orb are either smaller UFOs or beams emitted from the main object. Some even describe the rays as drones deployed from a larger UFO, the golden sphere. Ufologists also interpret the men in the upper right as awestruck witnesses seeing something appear before them for the first time. Art historians, however, argue that the golden orb is not a UFO. A closer look at the inscription below the female figure reveals the word Fortune. This identifies the woman as Lady Fortune, the personification of luck. The wheel behind her is her traditional attribute, while the golden orb above her head was an ancient symbol by which many early civilizations recognized her. The Greeks, who called her Tyche, gave her a golden globe as a symbol of the world. To them, fortune and wealth could change fate and destiny. In other words, they could change the world itself. Art historians admit they cannot explain the astonished expressions of the men in the upper right corner as easily as ufologists do. The shock on their faces may represent wonder at the power of fate over the world. The globe itself is divided into sections, resembling a mappa orbis terrae, a medieval map illustrating the world as surrounded by an ocean, with the Mediterranean dividing the 3 known continents. This conception of the world was highly popular and appeared on many coats of arms, and is still used today by royalty. For instance, during British coronation ceremonies, who is that in the sky? The Madonna adoring the Christ child by Giovanni Francesco da Rimini, c. 1460. High Museum of Art, Atlanta. This Italian Renaissance tempera painting features unusual iconography. What appears to be a typical religious scene turns surreal due to a strange circular opening in the sky. 3 figures peer out from this opening, one extending a hand toward the landscape below, while the other 2 look on. The figure reaching out emits golden rays downward. One of the watchers holds their hands in prayer. Ufologists interpret this circular opening as a UFO, while art historians disagree. Ufologists claim that the bands of light around the opening resemble illuminated flying objects. They argue that most UFO sightings include lights similar to those seen on modern aircraft. Some ufologists suggest that Christ is being lowered from above, as his form too is surrounded by radiant beams. They also note the kneeling monk on the right, who looks upward in prayer toward the object, supposedly confirming its presence. If it's not a real object, they ask, why would someone pray and look up at it? Art historians, however, identify the praying figure as John the Baptist, not a monk, as indicated by his cross. He is praying to the Lord, whose coming he foresees. While art historians do not explicitly explain the light enveloping the Christ child, they maintain that the circular opening in the sky is not a UFO but the sun. This work is among the first Renaissance paintings to move the Madonna and Child away from the traditional flat gold background of the Gothic and Byzantine eras. The rays around the circular opening gradually grow larger and then smaller again, creating a wave-like effect. This flowing, hair-like pattern was a common medieval motif for depicting the sun. Art historians also note that representing God as the sun was not unusual. During the Renaissance, artists drew inspiration from ancient civilizations and deities. Sol or Helios was the god known for wearing a radiant crown. The sun with a face was an anthropomorphic representation of this god, thus depicting a divine face or radiance, where the sun should be was entirely conventional. Is that a flying saucer? The Madonna with Saint Giovannino, attributed to 2 painters before Domenico Ghirlandaio, presents some intriguing imagery. In the foreground, the Madonna prays over the infant Jesus. Beside the young Christ is Saint Giovannino, shown with a pronounced halo and carrying a cross. Behind the Madonna stand an ox and a donkey gazing at the holy scene. In the background, we see a picturesque Italian landscape, a winding river, a castle, and a man standing on a hill. The man shades his eyes with his hand as he looks upward. Above him hovers a grayish object rimmed with gold, while to its left appears the sun, accompanied by 3 smaller orbs beneath it. Ufologists interpret these objects as UFOs, pointing to the man's startled expression and the dog beside him. The gray object's rounded form and shading, lighter on top, darker below, resemble a classic flying saucer. Ufologists also read the Madonna's slightly protective posture over the child as symbolic of an external threat. Art historians, however, offer different explanations. Many nativity and annunciation scenes feature heavenly events in the sky. Some scholars suggest the gray object is a mistake, a partially erased angel leaving behind a smudge of color, with traces of gilding still visible as part of the surrounding cloud. Art historians point to numerous paintings showing angels emerging from clouds, surrounded by golden halos, to support this interpretation. A good example is the Adoration of the Child with Saint Benedict and Angels by Vincenzo Foppa. In that painting, a shepherd shades his eyes from a radiant angel emerging from clouds, just as in Ghirlandaio's scene. Other historians think the grayish form might be Ghirlandaio's interpretation of a shining star, especially since the Star of Bethlehem appears elsewhere in the composition. Some also argue that the gray object could represent a forgotten Christian symbol, UFO or beam from God. The Italian Renaissance painting The Annunciation with Saint Emitius, a 1486 by Carlo Crivelli, executed in egg tempera and oil, is one of the most hotly debated works among ufologists and art historians. Crivelli places Mary within the interior of a Renaissance-style house, kneeling in prayer as a radiant bird descends along a beam of light. In front of the house stand two men, one holding a miniature city, the other with wings. Above them is a streaked cloud from which the beam of golden light originates, directed toward Mary. Ufologists assert that this streaked cloud and light beam conceal a UFO. They note its disc-like shape as too structured to be an ordinary cloud. Although the form has a cloud-like texture, they believe Crivelli misinterpreted what he saw, depicting a luminous flying craft surrounded by angels instead of a metallic disc. They also highlight the beam penetrating the wall toward Mary's head, comparing it to alien abduction imagery. Some go further, arguing that this event represents a form of genetic intervention, claiming that Jesus was not divine in the traditional sense, but the result of alien genetic engineering. According to this theory, Mary was abducted and artificially inseminated with extraterrestrial DNA, a reinterpretation of the Immaculate Conception. The small white spot above Mary's head, they say, is another UFO. Art historians, of course, disagree with most of this. They explain that the vortex cloud with the descending light beam was a common iconographic motif symbolizing God and heaven. Upon closer examination, small angels can be seen rotating in a circle, forming the spiral cloud. The beam touching Mary appears in many Annunciation scenes, representing the Holy Spirit's descent. The white spot above her head is not a UFO, but the Holy Spirit, traditionally shown as a white dove with a halo. Art historians argue that ufologists often misread these artworks, forgetting that Renaissance painters were interpreting written theological accounts, not eyewitness events. Thus, whether UFOs were truly present during such biblical moments remains entirely speculative.